Which option correctly describes keyboard? Option A. Entering text, numbers and commands. Option B. Displaying images. Option C. Printing documents. Option D. Storing firmware. A keyboard is an input device used to enter text, numbers and commands. What is the main function or meaning of mouse? Option A. Processing data. Option B. Pointing, clicking and selecting items. Option C. Printing pages. Option D. Storing files. A mouse is an input device used for pointing, clicking and selecting items. Which statement is true about scanner? Option A. Converting paper documents into digital form. Option B. Showing output. Option C. Routing packets. Option D. Saving ROM. A scanner is an input device used to convert paper documents or images into digital form. What does microphone refer to? Option A. Displaying video. Option B. Printing sound. Option C. Capturing sound as input. Option D. Storing BIOS. A microphone captures sound and sends it to the computer as input. Which option is most closely associated with webcam? Option A. Printing reports. Option B. Capturing images or video as input. Option C. Routing traffic. Option D. Formatting disks. A webcam captures images or video and sends them to the computer as input. Which option correctly describes barcode reader? Option A. Playing audio. Option B. Projecting slides. Option C. Cooling CPU. Option D. Reading barcode patterns. A barcode reader reads barcode patterns and sends the data to a computer. What is the main function or meaning of joystick? Option A. Controlling movement in games or simulations. Option B. Storing output. Option C. Printing graphics. Option D. Showing text. A joystick is an input device used to control movement in games or simulations. Which statement is true about touchscreen? Option A. Storing data permanently. Option B. Accepting input by touch. Option C. Modulating signals. Option D. Cooling hardware. A touchscreen accepts input when the user touches the display. What does light pen refer to? Option A. Routing internet data. Option B. Printing labels. Option C. Selecting or drawing directly on a screen. Option D. Storing documents. A light pen is used to select or draw directly on a supported screen. Which option is most closely associated with OCR? Option A. Blocking viruses. Option B. Displaying images. Option C. Calculating averages. Option D. Reading printed characters into editable text. OCR reads printed characters and converts them into editable text. OCR stands for Optical Character Recognition. It is used to recognize printed or written characters digitally. Which option correctly describes OMR? Option A. Printing answer sheets. Option B. Editing slides. Option C. Reading shaded marks on forms. Option D. Routing networks. OMR reads shaded marks on forms such as answer sheets. OMR stands for Optical Mark Recognition. It is used for mark-based data capture. What is the main function or meaning of MICR? Option A. Reading magnetic ink characters. Option B. Sending email. Option C. Displaying video. Option D. Formatting text. MICR reads characters printed using magnetic ink, commonly on checks. MICR stands for Magnetic Ink Character Recognition. It is used in banking document processing. Which statement is true about biometric scanner? Option A. Printing passwords. Option B. Opening spreadsheets. Option C. Projecting web pages. Option D. Capturing unique body features. A biometric scanner captures unique body features such as fingerprints or iris patterns for identification. What does graphics tablet refer to? Option A. Printing graphs. Option B. Entering drawings using a stylus. Option C. Saving BIOS. Option D. Routing packets. A graphics tablet allows drawings or sketches to be entered using a stylus. Which option is most closely associated with trackball? Option A. Processing queries. Option B. Printing worksheets. Option C. Moving the pointer using a fixed ball. Option D. Storing cloud data. A trackball moves the pointer by rotating a ball fixed inside the device. Which option correctly describes digital camera? Option A. Capturing photographs as digital input. Option B. Displaying spreadsheets. Option C. Modulating signals. Option D. Storing boot code. A digital camera captures photographs and provides them as digital input. What is the main function or meaning of card reader? Option A. Producing sound. Option B. Formatting disks. Option C. Showing slides. Option D. Reading data from cards. A card reader reads data from smart cards or memory cards. Which statement is true about voice recognition? Option A. Printing pages. Option B. Storing kernel files. Option C. Converting spoken words into text or commands. Option D. Displaying icons. Voice recognition converts spoken words into text or commands. What does stylus refer to? Option A. Routing packets. Option B. Entering handwriting or touch input. Option C. Cooling circuits. Option D. Printing barcodes. A stylus is used to enter handwriting or touch input on supported screens. Which option is most closely associated with QR code scanner? Option A. Reading quick response codes. Option B. Generating antivirus updates. Option C. Displaying audio. Option D. Storing programs. A QR code scanner reads quick response codes and sends the decoded data as input. QR stands for quick response. A QR code stores data in a two-dimensional pattern. Which option correctly describes sensor? Option A. Printing reports. Option B. Detecting physical conditions. Option C. Storing CDS. Option D. Showing windows. A sensor detects physical conditions such as temperature, motion or light and sends data to a computer. What is the main function or meaning of remote control? Option A. Printing documents. Option B. Processing arithmetic. Option C. Displaying pictures. Option D. Sending command input wirelessly. A remote control sends command input to an electronic system, usually wirelessly. Which statement is true about touchpad? Option A. Storing files. Option B. Printing photos. Option C. Controlling the pointer by finger movement. Option D. Scanning marks. A touchpad controls the pointer by sensing finger movement on its surface. Which option correctly describes processing? Option A. Converting input data into meaningful output. Option B. Saving data without change. Option C. Displaying without calculation. Option D. Printing paper. Processing converts input data into meaningful output. What is the main function or meaning of data processing cycle? Option A. Download, upload and browsing. Option B. Input, processing, output and storage. Option C. Cut, copy and paste. Option D. Font, style and size. The data processing cycle includes input, processing, output and storage. Which statement is true about ALU? Option A. Storing BIOS. Option B. Displaying graphics. Option C. Connecting networks. Option D. Performing arithmetic and logical operations. The ALU performs arithmetic and logical operations. ALU stands for Arithmetic Logic Unit. It is a part of the CPU used for calculations and comparisons. What does control unit refer to? Option A. Coordinating CPU operations. Option B. Printing output. Option C. Storing files permanently. Option D. Scanning images. The control unit coordinates operations inside the CPU and directs the flow of instructions. CPU stands for Central Processing Unit. It is the main processing unit of a computer. Which option is most closely associated with machine cycle? Option A. Open, edit, save and close. Option B. Fetch, decode, execute and store. Option C. Copy, paste, cut and undo. Option D. Scan, print, email and browse. The machine cycle commonly includes fetch, decode, execute and store. Which option correctly describes fetch? Option A. Printing an instruction. Option B. Deleting data. Option C. Retrieving an instruction from memory. Option D. Converting sound. Fetch means retrieving an instruction from memory for processing. What is the main function or meaning of decode? Option A. Displaying output. Option B. Saving PDF. Option C. Connecting router. Option D. Interpreting an instruction. Decode means interpreting an instruction before it is executed. Which statement is true about execute? Option A. Checking spelling. Option B. Selecting font. Option C. Turning monitor into input. Option D. Carrying out an instruction. Execute means carrying out the instruction after decoding. What does clock speed refer to? Option A. Hard disk capacity. Option B. Monitor brightness. Option C. Rate of CPU processing cycles. Option D. Worksheet cell size. Clock speed indicates how many cycles a CPU can perform per second. CPU stands for Central Processing Unit. It executes program instructions. Which option is most closely associated with GHz? Option A. 1 billion cycles per second. Option B. Graphics hyper zone. Option C. General hard disk 0. Option D. Global host zip. GHz is a unit used for processor clock speed and means 1 billion cycles per second. GHz stands for gigahertz. It is a frequency unit. Which option correctly describes multitasking? Option A. Deleting many files. Option B. Managing more than one task at a time. Option C. Printing one page. Option D. Storing without file name. Multitasking allows a system to manage more than one task at the same time. What is the main function or meaning of multiprocessing? Option A. Using one input device. Option B. Saving on one disk. Option C. Using one monitor only. Option D. Using more than one processor or core. Multiprocessing uses more than one processor or core for processing. Which statement is true about batch processing? Option A. Editing one word. Option B. Clicking every icon. Option C. Processing jobs in groups. Option D. Displaying animations. Batch processing handles a group of jobs without continuous user interaction. What does real-time processing refer to? Option A. Giving immediate processing results. Option B. Yearly archiving. Option C. Printing old files. Option D. Formatting storage. Real-time processing gives results quickly enough for immediate use. Which option is most closely associated with parallel processing? Option A. Typing input. Option B. Showing output. Option C. Reading barcode. Option D. Processing parts of a task simultaneously. Parallel processing divides a task into parts processed simultaneously. Which option correctly describes data? Option A. Finished decision. Option B. Raw facts before processing. Option C. Printed output only. Option D. Program instruction only. Data means raw facts and figures before processing. What is the main function or meaning of information? Option A. Raw facts only. Option B. Scanner device. Option C. Processed data with meaning. Option D. Computer case. Information is processed data that has meaning and usefulness. Which statement is true about throughput? Option A. Work completed in a given time. Option B. Keyboard keys. Option C. Screen size. Option D. File extension. Throughput is the amount of work a system completes in a given time. What does latency refer to? Option A. Storage capacity. Option B. Delay before response. Option C. Printer cartridge count. Option D. Chart type. Latency is the delay before a system responds to a request. Which option is most closely associated with cache? Option A. Fast storage for frequently used data. Option B. Color printing. Option C. Desktop icons. Option D. Magnetic ink reading. Cache stores frequently used data or instructions for faster access. Which option correctly describes register? Option A. External hard disk. Option B. Desktop icon. Option C. Very small fast storage inside CPU. Option D. Network cable. Registers are very small, fast storage locations inside the CPU. CPU stands for Central Processing Unit. It uses registers during instruction execution. What is the main function or meaning of instruction? Option A. Printed report. Option B. Command telling a computer what to do. Option C. Output device. Option D. Internet address. An instruction is a command that tells a computer what operation to perform. Which statement is true about program execution? Option A. Saving deleted files. Option B. Displaying wallpaper. Option C. Typing on paper. Option D. Running instructions to perform a task. Program execution means running instructions so a computer can perform a task. Which option correctly describes monitor? Option A. Displaying visual output. Option B. Keyboard. Option C. Mouse. Option D. Scanner. A monitor displays visual output from the computer. What is the main function or meaning of printer? Option A. Webcam. Option B, producing hard copy. Option C, microphone. Option D, joystick. A printer produces hard copy output on paper. Which statement is true about speaker? Option A, scanner. Option B, keyboard. Option C, producing sound output. Option D, barcode reader. A speaker produces sound output. What does projector refer to? Option A, mouse. Option B, RAM. Option C, router. Option D, displaying output on a large screen. A projector displays computer output on a large screen.